Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the In the 11 podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Griffiths, and this is the show where we bring on those from the world of football to show you what it takes to be in the 11 at the highest possible level. This week's guest is an amazing story, an amazing guest for all of you out there. Addison Steiner steps into the 11, and she has such a cool story in that I think we spoke about it just when we kind of ended the episode that a lot of players have this very super hyper focused mentality in the way in which they approach the game. And I think I was that way. And I think she spoke about she was that way earlier on in her career. And to a degree, that can be really healthy and helpful, should I say, is probably the better word, to get you to the highest levels of the game. And she's played at the highest levels of the game in Sweden for a number of seasons and also in the NWSL with Seattle. But also we have to understand that as athletes, as footballers, we have other interests. We have other things that make us happy, other things that make us tick. And it's okay to be a person who tries to be the best they can when they're on the football pitch, but also wants to go and explore other parts of their personality. And you don't have to necessarily be a robot to be the best footballer in the world. And I think Addison is the perfect example of that. And I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to share her story on this podcast with all of you today. She is just currently kind of in a bit of a tricky situation with her club in Puerto Rico, which we'll talk right at the top. Like I said there before, she has time in Sweden. She has time in the NWSL. She took a break from the game for a little while, chose to kind of step away to, do just what I spoke about there, pursue some other interests that she's had for a long time. And she also has college experience at a really high level, with Northwestern, with Hawaii, was a big time college player. So I am super grateful and thankful to Addison for coming on and sharing her story with all of you. I think you guys are going to really like it and get a lot out of it. This is the last time I'll ask you this before I leave Australia, and I can't promise you I'm not going to ask you a couple more times once I get back home and over the next couple of weeks as we kind of round out the rest of the year and go into the holidays. But YouTube, please, oh please, my friends, I'm making a push. I know, I'm begging, I sound desperate because I am. Can you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel? It helps the page grow massively. It helps these episodes grow and the podcast grow and allow me to continue to do this at the level that I hope to going forward. So if you could do me that favor, it just takes a second. You're already watching it, or maybe you're listening, but all you got to do is jump over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. I won't ask you anything else. And now I'll kick you over to Addison and myself. Peace. Is Addison Steiner. Addison, thank you so much for stepping in and speaking to me today. I'm super excited to hear your story, especially, just as we were talking there before recording. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting ups and downs and stories to share here. So again, thank you so much.
Of course, my pleasure. I'm excited.
So right now, where's current home base? Are you with a team, without a team? What's the kind of current status? Because I think going into this episode, I thought you were with a certain team, and now I know how things can change quickly in football. So kind of maybe give us the update.
For sure. Well, right now, at this very second in time, this very moment, I am back home in Prairie Village, Kansas, where I'm from originally. Grew up here. But I'm currently signed under contract with a team in Puerto Rico called Puerto Rico Soul. It was signed for August 10th. Still have yet to fly to Puerto Rico. It is now September something. But yeah, I was supposed to be playing with that team. Some things kind of I don't really understand everything that's going on, but we flew to Panama to play this tournament for like 18 days with the team, and it was crazy. We were supposed to fly to Puerto Rico before to train with the team, get prepared, and fly out to Panama because it was a pretty good tournament, or like important tournament, I guess, from what the coach of Puerto Rico Sol was portraying it to be. And so
Hmm.
we go to Panama, and we're like a brand new squad, like brand new squad, and there's 15 of us. Um, we're just getting to know each other. We're training 2 times a day. We have 2 friendlies before our first tournament game, and it's just like crazy how much we're training even before practice games, playing like full time 90-minute practice games, and not even getting like a day off before the first tournament game. And it was crazy, honestly. But instead of flying back to Puerto Rico, they flew us back home, which I was pretty surprised about. I didn't like hear any communication, or I just was kind of left in the dark with everything going on. So here I am back in Kansas City, just kind of waiting to see what's happening. My contract is like not getting honored. We're not getting paid. It's a whole thing with like the city of Mayaguez, Puerto Rico. Um, like I said, I don't really know all the details. I'm kind of sitting over here twiddling my thumbs, just
Yeah.
waiting to get the green light or the red light. I don't really know, but I still am under contract. I don't know
Hmm.
if it was a legit contract now that I'm kind of seeing things that are going on, but I definitely signed something. The coach signed something. Um, so it is written in paper,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a waiting game. I don't really know what's happening. So,
So I know you talked about the training and bringing a whole new squad together. How did the actual tournament itself kind of play out? Like, what was, how did it go playing against some of the teams you were playing against? How did the group kind of play together?
yeah, definitely. We only had about 5 or 6 days, I think, before that first game playing against other Central American teams. There were teams from Belize and Costa Rica, Guatemala, Nicaragua, basically all the top teams from Central America plus Puerto Rico.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting to see how Central American football is, once the games came around. But coming together for the first time, like probably 3 players were original and everyone else was new. So it was definitely an
Hmm.
adjustment period. But I think with the training and how often we trained, we learned quicker about just how each other plays a bit, which helped out. And the friendlies too helped out, uh, gaining cohesion and chemistry together. But I mean, it's hard to do with a brand new team in such a short amount of time to really fully understand
Yeah.
everyone's tactics, strengths, weaknesses. But considering everything, I think we did pretty okay. We won 2 games, tied one, and lost one, playing against teams who have played together for years and years, and some of these girls just got back from the World Cup. So, all
Wow.
things considered, I think we did all right, honestly. So, I'm proud of us. I wish there was more, um, positivity in the environment down there, and like lightness, but it is what it is, and overall I'm proud of us. considering
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, given all the circumstances and like you say there, I think if I were to read between the lines a little bit, it sounds like there's probably some off the field things that were happening that made the whole experience have some stressful moments. Even though I'm sure it's an amazing experience to go down and play in Panama, but and it's curious too, as like you seem as if there would be like definitely excitement and interest from the club side to then bring you all back to Puerto Rico and get the league started, especially after a strong showing like that in this
Yeah.
tournament. And yeah, so it's perplexing to me to hear like even after the tournament there was no real communication about like okay, like here's where we are now, let's all get back to Puerto Rico. And I know you said too there was something that had to do with the actual city of that you were supposed to be living in Puerto Rico as well.
Hmm. Yeah. The city of Mayaguez, Puerto Rico. So.
Gotcha. So is there like an issue with them and the league? Like, is the league kind of in jeopardy of not even happening? Or like, how does the relationship with the city kind of affect everything that's going on?
I really don't have all the detail or have any details to really answer that question. It's
Mm,
it's such a blur for me that um anytime I do kind of ask a question, it still kind of remains unanswered
yeah.
clearly to me. So I really don't know how to answer that question, to be honest. I wish I
No, that
could. Really wish I
no, that's
could.
completely fair, because I think it also paints kind of an important picture about sometimes football contracts in general, the way football clubs operate. Like sometimes there's this level of just kind of like I don't know, just a cloud over things, or people speak very ambiguously when they talk, like, oh, yeah, like, we'll help you out, we'll do this, that, and the other. And
Oh
I don't know,
yeah.
sometimes, like,
Oh
for
yeah.
lack of a better word, sometimes with certain people in football, you kind of have to cut through the bullshit and be like, listen, just tell me what's going on. Like, one way or the other, even if it's terrible, even if it's
100%.
great, like, you got to just give it to me straight because I need to figure out what I'm going to do next if, you know what I mean? Like, so. I don't know,
Yes.
but I think it's important, like
100%.
because other people probably go through the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said right there, it really makes you build tough skin. It makes you have to use your voice, stand up for yourself, your needs, what you want, what you don't want, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's triggering. It hits a lot of deep, deep wounds, but you grow from it and you learn from it. And, sometimes it's just not meant to be. And you just got to pick your head up after you can sit and complain and be angry for a little bit because that's necessary.
Yeah,
But you just got to keep moving forward. You got to move forward and not be afraid to stand up for yourself. Honestly, I think that's my biggest takeaway from the situation right now is I really had to use my voice and in a way that I haven't before and it was
yeah,
uncomfortable, but sometimes shit is absolutely not acceptable and you just got to do what you got to do not only for yourself but for your teammates because some people might be younger and not really understand what they
mm,
deserve or what's acceptable or healthy in certain environments. So that was another thing that I had to really think about. It's like, okay, I'm not just voicing for myself, I'm voicing for every single woman here on this team. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you've been building that resiliency and establishing that voice over years of playing this game at a high level. And so I imagine too, you probably feel more of in a capable place now to do that than maybe, when you walked onto your freshman year at Northwestern, right? Like maybe now everything that you've been through in the past couple of years of your career has led you to a point now where you feel like no, I need to be a voice for, like you said, for myself, but also for the younger teammates who maybe don't know how to go about something like that, and feel a little bit scared to kind of step up and voice their opinion.
Yeah, totally. I think when I was in college, I definitely was pretty stubborn and not really afraid to say what was on my mind or do what I needed to do or not do what I needed to do. Um, Sometimes learning the hard way in that
Mm,
in that aspect. But I think once I hit the league in the States in the NWSL, that's when I kind of was like, whoa, really humbled. Um, didn't really speak my mind, kind of just did what I was told, um, regardless if it was something I was capable of doing or not. But yeah, when I was at Northwestern and Hawaii and even Sweden, I felt pretty confident in my abilities, in myself to say my opinions, say what was working for me, what wasn't working for me. Maybe not in the most um what's the word I'm looking for? Shoot, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking out here. Like most productive way or most I was just more blunt, I guess.
mm,
I'll just put it that way. I was more blunt. If I didn't like something, I would be like, I don't like that. But yeah, once I hit the league in the States, then I kind of shut up and was like, okay, dang. And then this situation now is kind of bringing that back out of like, okay, you still got to say what you need to say.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's been a
maybe.
full circle.
Yeah, maybe like you said, maybe that kind of full circle, or that balancing act was kind of necessary to kind of hone your voice into what it needs to be, right? Like in the
Yeah.
beginning, maybe speaking more of exactly what's on your mind, kind of right off the rip, works sometimes, but maybe also sometimes it had its moments where it kind of backfired a little bit. And then also
Yeah.
on the
I
flip side,
definitely got in a little
like
trouble.
being in the NWSL, you don't want to just go all the way into your shell and not speak your voice. And now it's kind of like you found that medium. But I want to like kind of
Hmm.
deep dive into some of those places, those stops along your journey. I know you already mentioned you grew up in Kansas. What was kind of the game like for you growing up? Was it love at first sight and just knew you wanted to pursue it all the way until the highest level?
Yeah. I mean, I was a multi sport athlete growing up and I did love it, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to play professionally. I'm going to drop everything and just focus on this. That was not
Mm,
who I was growing up. I played basketball competitively, I played softball, um, I ran track. So I did a bunch of different things, but soccer seemed to be the one thing that I was better at, I think. And I was playing on a rec league, and one of my coaches was like, she needs to go to a different team. Like, she just needs to go play in on a better team. And I think that really opened up my parents' eyes to like, okay, like this could be something. And I'm just like oblivious to everything growing up, really. And uh, once I started getting scouted by universities and stuff, I realized like, oh, cool, like this is something that I can do. And then my parents really gave me like full reign to do whatever I wanted to do with it. But I still very much like wanted my social life. Like I feel like I missed out on like a lot of high school things because of soccer. So it was never like my top priority where I eat, breathe, live soccer. I definitely still like to have fun and hang out with my friends and enjoy just being in high school, or try to enjoy being in high school, because high school is hard sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, then Northwestern reached out, and that's when my family and my coach was like, "You really should look at this," because I didn't even know what Northwestern was, honestly. But then when I did some research, I was like, "Dang, okay, Big Ten sports, really amazing academic school.
Mm,
Um, I got to see what's up." So
yeah.
then
Was
that's what
there
happened.
was Northwestern kind of the first school to come knocking, and then that was kind of where your decision was made, or were there other schools that were also in the mix? I guess maybe break down a little bit of your kind of recruitment process.
Yeah. No, there were definitely other schools. There were quite a few different schools. Up TCU, Memphis, Minnesota was heavily recruiting me. A&M had some interest. KU did. Um, Pepperdine. I mean, I basically just got like a lot of pamphlets and a lot of things my end of my freshman year. So I don't really remember all the recruiting rules at that point. I
Mm-hmm.
was I was so young. Um, Nebraska was a big one too. But I was so young, I didn't really understand what was going on. I think I was like 15 when this was happening. And once I got interest from Northwestern, that was when my parents really like talked to me and was like, this is a really amazing opportunity for you. So I just went with that because I had to listen to my parents in some way, I guess.
Yeah. No, but like I think you kind of bring up
But
a point there that I know I definitely look back and think about sometimes, for those of us that decide to go to a university or go to a college, it's arguably one of the bigger decisions that you'll make in your life. And it's a huge
right,
commitment. And we
totally.
make that decision when we're like 16 or 17. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I know
crazy.
myself at that age, like, I'm looking back now, I'm like, kind of similar to how you're saying. I'm like, I didn't really have a clue of what was going on, what this was going to mean, how this was going to lead to the future. Like, and I also know I've definitely spoken to college coaches as well. And like, on the flip side of that, they're like, yeah, my job, my sort of livelihood comes down to the decisions that 16 and 17-year-olds make, whether they're going to come to my program or not. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you take a step back and look at just college sports from afar, you're like, wow, this is a little bit crazy.
Totally. I mean, you barely even know yourself. You barely even know what you like or interested in. I mean, at least I'm speaking for myself, I guess. But
No, it's a great point.
if you can't vote or smoke a cigarette or drink a beer, but you're choosing what to do with the rest of your life, like it doesn't really make sense to me. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's a that's a whole nother podcast that we don't need to dive
yeah,
into right now. But
that's it.
your experience at Northwestern, once you actually do get there, how would you look back on your time and your memories at Northwestern?
Yeah. Um, Being at Northwestern was definitely a challenge for me, I would say. Um, Athletically, I loved it because of the good competition. Um, my coach was a really great soccer coach, and I was just getting kind of, I didn't know what to expect, right? I think you grow up thinking college is one way, and you have these
Mhm.
expectations of how it should be and how it should go. And that really wasn't my experience there. I don't know what I was expecting or what I was hoping for, but overall it was fun. I had a blast. I excelled um in in my sport there, um, and really helped the program kind of revamp. So I got recruited by a different coach than who coached me there originally. So I was the only one in my class who was recruited by a different coach. So when I
Mm,
got there, it was it was totally different than what I was expecting it to be. But he really challenged me, and looking back, in good ways for me to grow as a person. And I don't think I was necessarily mature enough to go to Northwestern. And it wasn't it didn't really suit my personality and who I was,
mm,
but it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun. Um yeah, I excelled for me in the sports area. And it was beautiful being in Chicago, being right on the lake and everything. But eventually it took a toll on me just with being on trimesters, being a student athlete. Uh, and so I had to take a semester off, actually, my junior year, I think it was, to go home and kind of regroup and figure out what I really wanted to do.
mm-hmm.
And that's when I decided I'll try to go to Hawaii. And then that's what I did. So,
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
So is maybe your time at Northwestern when you spoke about kind of in high school, like how there's some things that you just sort of have to give up, right? Like of the normal high school experience when you are a student athlete, and I know for sure from my personal experience, but I'm sure you can probably attest to more that there's a level of that in college too. You don't really get
Mm-hmm.
that same college student experience when you also have the athletic side of it, year round, nonstop on the
Mm-hmm.
clock. Um, is that maybe kind of what led to, I mean, perhaps we could say that a little bit of like burnout towards the end of the Northwestern career?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I would say it's burnout. Just your whole entire day is structured for you from
Mm,
the moment you get up till the second you go to bed. It's practice, eat, class, tutors, library hours, homework, lots of homework. And I mean, there were so many nights where I just didn't sleep because I was just up so late finishing
yeah.
everything that I had to do with school. So I think just a combination of all of that for 3 years um, definitely took its toll on me, because I'm the type of person who I need my freedom to be a regular person and to be myself and to let
Yeah.
loose and to relax. And so when I didn't get that, it just got to a point where I just couldn't do it. And I just kind of shut down. And um, but I learned so much from being
Mm,
there, and it taught me so much about the importance of rest and taking care of yourself mentally, physically, everything. So if I didn't really go through that, I definitely would not have learned the lessons that I needed to learn and be the person that I am right now. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can really see how the move to Hawaii like makes complete sense because, I'm sure Chicago is an amazing city, but for those who aren't familiar, I'm sure in the winters gets really cold, like especially the rigors of like an academic school like Northwestern, like just constant full on. Um, and just to see like, and obviously everyone's perception of Hawaii is like, yes, I'm sure you probably had a lot of commitments athletically and academically, but everything just seems a little bit more laid back and a little bit more
Oh, yeah.
less tense out on the
Oh, for
island. And I'm sure, when you're always probably within touching distance of a beach or something like that, it makes things a little bit less stressful. So I can completely understand
100%.
that. And
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, just for my like personal curiosity, like, what was it like to play in Hawaii? Because I think like if you offered that to me, I don't. It'd be pretty hard to turn down.
Honestly, it was such a crazy story. I think it was like written in the cosmos how it all kind of worked out. But I remember just having this epiphany at home when I was taking a semester off from Northwestern, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna email Hawaii for shits and giggles and see what happens. And sure
Yeah.
enough, they offered me 2 days later. Some girl
Wow.
apparently um, left the team or get kicked off the team or something happened where a scholarship opened up, and it just happened in 2 days from me reaching out. So I was like, I guess I told my parents this, and they just were like, "You're insane." I told them, I was like, "I think I'm gonna go play soccer in Hawaii," and they're like, "Yeah, right, okay, whatever." 2 days later, I'm like, "I'm going to Hawaii," and they're like, "Oh my." So it was amazing. Like, I felt welcomed right away by the team. They embraced me with open arms. The culture there is so family oriented, and just they got your back. And I absolutely loved my experience there. I was a lot more interested in the classes as well. Like, I took some of my favorite classes there, and the soccer was just so much fun. It really brought the joy back to it
Mm,
for me. Um, I mean, we were like a average program, and it it was so fun because there's not many sports on the island. So when we had a game, we had so many fans, and
wow.
it was such a blast because you could just hear all the ruckus, like from the sideline, from the family, from everyone just cheering you on, and it was a blast. And I remember specifically senior night was so incredibly special because they incorporate part of their culture into it. So getting to experience that and be a part of that was so special. Everyone would lay you. So they would bring like lays and put it all over you. And I'm not even kidding. I was like covered in lays, just like it was so heavy, but it was really special to just be a part of something like that and to truly
Yeah.
experience where I was living and my teammates and my coach. So, yeah, I really loved it. It was definitely more my speed. Island time
Mm,
is definitely a thing. It exists. It's real.
yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah. Again,
yeah.
like I said, I have to imagine it's in a lot of ways maybe kind of the complete opposite of like the busy hubbub Chicago sort of life, and for many people, like sometimes you kind of need that almost therapeutic new endeavor and that new
Mhm.
adventure. And I like what you said as
Mhm.
well about the finding the joy again, because I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that for many people who play football, but even other sports as well, that it's not always from when you first picked up the ball or first kicked the ball to when you retire that you love it day in and day out. And it's even for those of
Yeah.
us that get lucky enough to do this and get paid, like there's days where we don't like the sport at all. There's days we hate it. There's days we think about never touching a ball again. Like, was that was finding that joy for you in Hawaii as that season comes to a close? Is there a feeling of, okay, I ended this on a high and I have the joy again, and that's kind of how I want to remember my soccer? Or is it like, I found the joy again, let's go see if we can find the joy for a little bit longer?
Mm, yeah. Always explain soccer to people for me like a toxic relationship because the highs are really, really high and the lows are
Yeah.
really, really low, and you
That's so
experience
true.
every single human emotion possible. Um, and Hawaii did bring out the joy for me again, and the smiles and the laughter, and took the pressure off. And I excelled there as well. And I remember after my last game, my coach or my assistant coach came up to me and they were like, "Have you thought about playing professionally?" And I looked at them and I was like, "No." Like, I never envisioned myself being able to play professional soccer. And so hearing those words come out of their mouth, I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And my coach told me to enter the draft. So I was like, "Okay, yeah, whatever you say, like I'll do that." And I didn't get drafted, but her good friend was the coach at Seattle. So I got an invitation to go to the preseason camp. So that was kind of my first eye opener into professional women's soccer. And I actually left school early. I didn't even finish to go to this camp. And I didn't make the team in Seattle, but then that led me back home to train with the Kansas City team.
Mm-hmm.
And Vladko was the head coach of the team, and he also coached me in club my senior year of high school. So I knew him. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was practicing with that team during the summer, and I eventually got picked up by a team in Sweden. So it was kind of a domino effect from, I mean, really everything, but my coaches in Hawaii definitely opened my eyes and saw my potential and put that planted that seed in my brain that it could be a possibility for me.
Wow. So what was that experience like going to Seattle and being a part of that camp? I mean, was it a big wake up call of like what level of player there was out there, or how would you look back at that experience?
Yeah. So I was done with my senior season in the fall. So I had all spring and I was just kind of enjoying my life outside of not playing in Hawaii. So I was just straight chilling and not working out and just going to the beach and vibing, I guess, if
Yeah.
you want to use that term. But this was 2017. So at that time, the the best league in the world was the US. So when I got to Seattle, off of being kind of like a beach bum for a while, I was
Mm,
very humbled, to say the least. Um, and it opened my eyes to just the the level of play that was expected of me, or and really just everything.
yeah.
So I think coming out of college and being directly thrown into the fire was a good start because it made me realize all the work that I have to do, and like, okay, this isn't just like fun and games anymore. This is real life. This is a job. This is your body is the most important thing. Like, you have to take care of not only that, but your mental health. And I'm surrounded by world class athletes. I mean, I remember seeing Megan Rapinoe and just being like, oh my gosh, I'm in the same locker room as her. And then full circle when I actually got signed by the team in Seattle. She was on the team. We both
Wow.
had pink hair. I had pink hair first. But it was a good full circle moment to see everything that I had to do to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely going to be one of my questions was did that feel like such a full circle moment to go in with them in preseason and then, a couple of years down the line go and sign with them. I'm sure that has to have
Totally.
felt amazing. When you kind of had that progression and then found your first professional opportunity with Sweden, did it feel like, okay, now this is a level where it's more like my speed, or did it feel like because you had that NWSL experience that it was maybe perhaps a bit of a step down? Like, what was that
Mhm.
first Sweden that kind of experience like in terms of your introduction to professional soccer?
Yeah, so the first team that I was on in Sweden, it was in the second division, and I had no idea what to expect really. I mean, coming from the US in the top league with the best players, I mean, I can only imagine it not being as competitive or intense, and that's exactly what it was. It was a great balance between soccer and normal life. Like most of the other girls had other jobs, and soccer
Hmm.
was just something that they loved to do and a hobby. Um,
Yeah.
but I think when women or really anyone start out professionally, they start out on a team to gain experience and get noticed from other teams in the country or really wherever you are in different leagues. Build your
Yeah.
resume, and so I was only there for half of a season, and then the following season I got picked up by a different team and then ultimately moved to the top division in Sweden. So it progressively got more intense and more serious. But I think overall, the league in Sweden compared to what I experienced in Seattle, there was a lot more balance, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really important point that you make, that a lot of people for their first contract, it's probably going to be a little bit lower than you expected because you just kind of have to get your foot in the door somewhere. But then take
Hmm.
advantage of the opportunity like you did. And if you do well enough, especially in places like Europe, you just feel like there's kind of always eyes on you, and there's always that opportunity to take a step up or, play with a new club and things like that. So was
Hmm.
your um, first season with the new club, I believe it's Orebro. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, that is. But no, I played for a different team before that called
Ah, okay,
Ostersunds DFF, if I'm
gotcha.
pronouncing that correctly.
And was Orebro the team where you like won the league and then got them promoted to the top division?
Yes, yes. Yep.
What was what's that experience like to go through a season and win the league and win promotion and with a team overseas?
Yeah, I it was so exciting for me because in all of my years playing soccer, I had never really won a championship before. Besides like club younger days winning state cup and stuff, but in my adult career winning winning the league, it felt amazing. I mean, everyone was so excited, and I felt really proud of just looking back of my whole career. That was really exciting moment for me. And plus the girls, it was just a fun team. I loved the coaches. It was a great atmosphere. I felt so comfortable there and like I could be myself. And so overall it was definitely a highlight of my career.
And what is it? How does the transition go from that first year when you win the league to then getting promoted and playing in the higher division the next year? Is it
Mhm.
still kind of like the same group and the same vibe that you then bring to a higher level, or do things kind of change when something like that happens?
Yeah, I think it definitely changed. We got new players, we got old players left. So it was a new team, it was a new vibe. The league was definitely much better. We were still we were still hanging with them. And I think in the middle of that season is when I left to go to the States. But it was definitely that next step that I needed to take in order to prepare me for the league here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that. But one question I have is like, what are some of the pros and cons of playing overseas. Like as a foreigner that goes in and plays in Europe, I know there's. I mean, just speaking from my personal experience, there's a lot of cool things with it, but there's definitely also a lot of kind of sacrifices that you have to make to play at that level. Like, what was some
Mhm.
of the things that you look back on and recall as pros or cons, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. Depending on where you go, I think, and what league you're in, I think I was very fortunate to be in a country that was very established. I mean, Sweden is and Scandinavian countries are top-notch countries. Um, the pros, I mean, you get to see Europe, you get to travel around on your off weekends. I really took advantage of that. It was the first time that I was living alone and experiencing that kind of freedom. And so I traveled a lot alone and got to experience new cultures and just everything. I grew so much over there, but it's definitely not all rainbows and butterflies by any means. I mean, people think, "Oh, you play professional sport, you're so lucky." And of course, yeah, I'm lucky, but it's not anything what I expected it to be. I mean,
Yeah.
it made me realize how much I took college sports for granted with all the facilities and the resources and everything.
Yep.
Um, the cons, like, we didn't have nearly as many resources as we did in college, surprisingly, as a professional sports team. You'd be lucky if you got to see a physio or
Mm,
a doctor. I mean, we were taping our own ankles and
wow.
um yeah, I mean it was pretty rare to have like a trainer there. Um Also, you're there 8 months out of the year. You miss a lot of important special family events and whatnot. So that was definitely a con. But I think they definitely balanced each other out for how much fun I had over there. I loved it. I loved Sweden a lot. Great. It's a
Yeah.
great country. The people are awesome too. And there's not a language barrier, which I know a lot of players have to face. So I got lucky with that one.
Yeah, definitely Scandinavia is a great place I think for Americans to go because it's like you can kind of maybe the transition into Europe is a little bit easier than going to other European countries where English is kind of not spoken as much. It's
Yeah.
really common with all the Sweden, Denmark, Finland, or Norway, stuff like
Hmm.
that. Um, so then, how does the opportunity to come back, have that full circle moment, join Seattle, like how does that all come about?
Yeah, so it was World Cup year. I don't really remember what year that was. I think it was 2019. I
Yeah,
could be
so for
wrong. Don't
20
quote me.
yeah, 2023 we just had one. It would have been 2019. Yep.
Okay, 2019. Yeah, it was 2019 World Cup year, and Vladko was coaching the team in Seattle at the time. And he called me up and he was like, "Hey, are you interested in coming to be a national team replacement player?" So I would go over there just for the time being while the other players were in the World Cup.
Hmm.
And my dad was visiting me at the time in Sweden, and he was like, "You should do this." And I was like, "Okay." But breaking a contract wasn't as easy or graceful as I was thinking it might be. So that was a time where I really had to learn how to use my voice and do the things that I needed to do for my career and for
Yeah.
myself, despite it maybe not being what my team in Sweden wanted.
Hmm.
But so I did it only with the knowledge that I could only be there for just 2 months and then potentially come back to Sweden after that. But once I got to Seattle after the 2 months, they signed me for the rest of the season. So I never went back to Sweden. Um, and all my stuff was still in Sweden, and I still yet to get it back. My suitcase is roaming around the world somewhere. I don't know
No
where it is,
way.
but yeah. R.I.P.
That's
It's okay.
crazy. Wow. And I think like so when you're speaking to the club in Sweden, they even though like they might know that this is a great opportunity for you, it could be a dream for you. Um, Obviously for them, it's like, well, she's playing for us and she's doing well for us, so we want to keep like kind of that asset.
Yeah.
Like, is that where that kind of friction was created between you and club and trying to go and make that opportunity happen?
Oh yeah, for sure. More with the president of the team. My coach was really understanding about it. I had a great relationship with him. So he knew where I was coming from, but it was mostly from the board, the president or some, I forget his title, but that's where the friction really came from. And um, just you could see little sneaky things, writing out a new contract, and I really had to stand my voice there and be like, say no to things and have uncomfortable conversations. And I mean, it's a business. Like I realized then and there, like I was doing the job of what agents do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really opened my eyes to the behind the scenes things that goes on. That it is a business. It's not just something that I love to do or my passion, or it's a job, and I'm technically under contract. I'm owned property, I guess. I don't know, for lack of better words, but
Yeah.
um yeah, I saw the business side of things, and that forced me to have to speak up about what I needed and wanted to do. So,
Yeah, I think
but
it's like
ultimately I got
I think it's a hard transition for athletes to make because you know, growing up your whole youth and college career, everything is kind of about like, how do I do what's best for the team? I'll just do whatever is going to help the team. And like maybe you put yourself in situations where, you know, you're not doing what's best for you personally, but it's for the good of the team. And then all of a sudden, from like that
yeah.
moment you end college to going into the pros, like you don't completely reverse it, but you have to take steps towards understanding that it's a business and protecting yourself as well and looking out for the best interests of you, because anyone who goes into a career that's outside of sport would do the exact same thing. So like it'd be silly
Mhm.
for us to say like, oh no, we're just always going to do what's best for the company. Like um and it's a
Yeah.
hard, I think it's a hard transition like to make because you're so programmed for so long to kind of not think in a selfish way.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think now colleges are kind of understanding that more often. Like
Yeah.
you can get sponsor deals now. Like you can't just make money off of a really good player and that player not see anything. Like
Yeah.
I think it's getting more known now, and there's more awareness in college about that now. But yeah, definitely in the pros, you got to be selfish to an extent. I mean, it's your life, it's your body, your it's your mental health, and ultimately you could be gone that next year. So you never really know what's going to happen. So you got to really look out for yourself and your health and your safety. Um, but yeah, of course, thinking about your team and building those relationships with your coaches, and but also never straying away from who you are and your authentic self and your
Mm.
voice, because I think a lot of people have a hard time really doing that on teams, afraid of like losing playing time or
Yeah.
getting not getting signed again or something. So it's definitely this battle that we have to play in order to please other people, but also taking care of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um So Seattle, how is that? Obviously, there's such a cool moment for you to come back and join the team as a national team replacement, and then I'm sure it's even icing on the cake to then be signed for the rest of the season. Is that kind of how you
Hmm.
look at that experience, or what are some of the maybe also challenges that were faced with that time?
Yeah, I mean, getting back into that league and kind of losing that balance that I had in Sweden, it was definitely brought me back to similar feelings of when I was at Northwestern.
Mm,
Just the energy and routine and structure that it had. While also living with a host family and not having a car, like I felt kind of confined there, but I definitely was exposed to one of the best coaches in the world, the best players in the world, the best trainers in the world. Um, so I really respect the league compared to, I mean, I respect both leagues, don't get me wrong, but um, the NWSL definitely had more of their shit together, I would say,
mm,
in terms of just we had more resources, I would say. But yeah, it was the most intense soccer that I've ever played in my life. I had never been in that good of shape ever, and I pushed my body to its limits. Not only my body, but my mind. And I definitely lost a lot of confidence there because I was used to being, um, I mean, a really decent player on my other teams. Like I would excel on the other teams that I was on. So once I hit the NWSL, it was a big eye opener. I mean, I saw the field a couple times. I remember the first game I went in, I missed a wide open goal.
oh,
But yeah, it was such a bummer. Um, but I learned so much from being there, and it was really initiation for me to see how other players kind of lived their lives too, and it was an initiation for me and just my adult life, like growing into a young adult compared to a teenager or a young adult. Like it really opened my eyes to parts of myself that I needed to work on and ultimately grow.
mm.
So,
Was part of that maturation and growth what led to? I know in 2019 you kind of chose to take a step back and step away from the game. Can you
yeah.
talk a little bit about that decision and maybe some of the factors that kind of led to you reaching that point?
Yeah, for sure. Um I think I also just hit a burnout. Hi, Mom. I think I I hit a burnout there, and it took me back to when I was at Northwestern, taking a step away. So I figured, maybe that's the best thing I can do right now. And it also happened to be like right when COVID was hitting. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, this is probably a good time to do
Mm,
that. And it ultimately, soccer was never my top priority. Like as bad as that sounds, it was never like my biggest love, I would say. It was the things that I got to experience from soccer. Of course, I love the game. I'll always love the game. There's
mm,
nothing like being on a field at all and scoring goals and winning games. But outside of the game, too, is what I really, really love to do, like seeing the world and the people. And I mean, it's so much more than just the sport. But I wanted to be able to dive into other parts of my life, too, that I put on put on hold
Yeah.
while I pursued soccer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there at the end. Like, I think all of us, myself included, have this feeling that there's so many other parts of our life that we just kind of put on hold, or we just say, oh, when I'm done playing, like I'll focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it's, I don't know. I guess in some ways it makes sense because you want to try and give your best to the sport and this time that you have in it. But in other
Yeah.
ways, it's like, I don't know if this is really the way that you should live a life in all these different lanes and like compartments. So for you, like
Yeah.
when you get to that decision, are you looking at it as I'm just going to take some time away and come back, or are you kind of looking at it like maybe this is retirement and it's time for me to go and onto new things?
I think that I ultimately never fully closed the door on the sport. I I said, yeah, I'm retired, like I'm not going to go back and play. And as years went by, I was like, yeah, no, like I'm not going to play again. I don't think like I could do that, but I know in the back of my mind I never fully shut that door
Mm.
all the way. And it took about 3 or 4 years. I played in a couple summer semi-pro leagues, and I never fully got away from the sport in my time not playing professionally. But
Gotcha.
I did dive into a lot of other parts of my life 100%, which allowed me.
Do you feel, sorry.
No, you're fine. Go
I
on.
was just going to say like in that, pursuit of other things and kind of like some of the things that you're seeking out in off the field or away from football, like do you kind of feel like you found some of those things that you were looking for in your time away from the game at a high level?
Yeah, definitely. I dove headfirst into a lot of different things that I was always curious about and wanting to try, and I did to an extreme. But soccer was always my like safety net and my backbone and my foundation. So whenever I felt lost or confused, I would always just go play a game of soccer, and it would bring that stability and foundation back for me.
And when
So,
the idea starts to creep in of coming back, I guess
mhm.
what are some of the things that you're looking for when, because you kind of laid out there what you're looking for is stepping away from the game, looking to discover more parts of yourself and kind of dive into things that you haven't had the chance to. When you come back and choose to come back to the game now, like kind of what are the things that you're looking for in the game, and what are some of the emotions that are tied with coming back into the professional game?
I just want to have fun. I remember thinking
Mm.
like, okay, if this is even a possibility, I need to be more decisive about this and not just say yes to anything. And I was like, okay, I want to go to a beach. I miss playing in Hawaii. I if I'm going to go play, I want to play at the beach. And so I had a few offers. I had one in Turkey, one in Italy, north of Italy, and one in Puerto Rico. And so I was like, well, this is what I wanted. I wanted to go play soccer by the beach and ultimately just have fun. I want to enjoy myself. Um, I want to find that joy again. And I know that when I take it more seriously, I don't play as well. So the less serious I take it, or the less pressure I put on myself to excel or succeed or be this player that they want me to be, I won't be able to play as who I am. So I just wanted to be my authentic self, have fun, score some goals, and be in a beautiful place that I can explore and see the world
Yeah.
while I can, and my
Yeah.
body is limber.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Like I think when you take it back a step and you don't put quite so much pressure on yourself and you just go and I don't know, maybe for the fans they wouldn't like to hear this, but it's like the less that you actually care about what the result is going to be, and I don't, and that's maybe not the right way to say it. Obviously, whenever
Yeah,
we go out, we want to, like you said, we want to win, we want
of
to play at
course,
our best, but
of
like
course,
I don't know.
of
I
course.
think in speaking, yeah, in speaking to you, like I think I can definitely resonate with so many things like in my past of playing the game that I was just so like uptight and tense and don't make a mistake
Yeah,
and I want to play the
yeah,
best. And when you start to
yes,
just alleviate that and say whatever happens, it's gonna be okay. Like if we win this game, we lose
yeah,
this game, like I'm still gonna wake up tomorrow and everything's gonna be fine. I think that
totally.
helps your overall level as a player.
100%. I mean, I found the more I was trying to please my coaches and do exactly what my coaches were saying, I would not be playing my best. And so it was kind of like, and I know not every player is the same and everyone has their own tactics. And I know
Yeah.
players eat, breathe, live, play the sport and train all the time and do a lot of extra stuff and touches, and which is amazing. And I have so much respect for them. And I'm just a different player. And yeah, I couldn't let it consume my entire life in order for me to be my best.
Mm,
I had to have that balance and not being so pressure filled. I had to have the space and room to be myself on the field and off the field so I could ultimately do my job, which was score goals.
yeah. Yeah, and it's also about I think accepting that everyone is different, everyone's journey in this is different. Because I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we, you know, you're in you're in the business of sometimes comparing yourself to other players. Well, other players train this much, and other players do this, and
Hmm.
eventually you kind of have to just understand that no two players are the same. In the same way that I've done this podcast with so many different players, I haven't heard a single two stories that are identical. So
Oh,
I
that's
think that goes
beautiful.
to show that, like every person, every player should allow themselves that own, individuality, that own uniqueness in their approach to the game, in how they play, and what type of pressure they put on
Hmm.
themselves. Like just
Yeah.
because you see another player doing it one way doesn't mean that has to be the way that you do it as well, just because they're successful. Like you have to find what's successful for you, what that looks like.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And not having shame about what that looks like too. Like if you don't
Yeah,
feel like you're doing it enough compared to one of your teammates who was doing a lot, just being okay with that and not shaming yourself of like, oh, I should be doing more, when it's like we're all really just doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
hmm.
So I usually have one more question that I like to kind of add at the end. I appreciate so much you taking your time,
Yeah, of
and
course.
we'll definitely have to be on the lookout as well to see what happens with the
I
with the
know.
Puerto Rico situation in the
I
coming
know.
weeks.
Put out the pray to the soccer gods for me.
Exactly, exactly. Um, so I've been workshopping how the best way to ask this question. So it's kind of multi-parted. I love the idea of like a player's story and the chapters that it has, and really kind of having it be like a book, right? And so
Mm.
I guess the first part of the question is, what do you think the current chapter is that you are in right now in terms of whether you want to have it be kind of your personal journey or your playing career?
Oh, okay. Gosh, I feel like I've already written like 26 books. Like just,
There's a lot in the drafts.
oh yeah. I think I'm on the chapter now where I'm bringing so many lessons and experiences that all happened so quick at such a young age that now I'm really just implementing everything that I've learned and gone through to now lead a new chapter of life that's more in alignment with not only my soccer skills, but where I'm at mentally. I feel I'm more out of place of less like competition and more just enjoyment and being and presence. Um,
Yeah.
Not looking for a specific outcome, but allowing whatever is meant to be, and riding those waves in the most graceful way that I can. So I think this chapter is called Presence.
Ah, I like that. How do you think presence will lead into what are some of the future chapters that you kind of foresee yourself writing?
Yeah, I mean, I always can picture my life going in so many different ways, or like thinking I want to do something and then trying that and it not happening. So it's hard for me to say exactly because with every excuse me, with everything that I've experienced in my life so far, it's always just come up so spontaneously and randomly and out
Mm.
of the blue that I think I've kind of left the planning part in the past. But I will say I'm more intentional with the decisions that I make, and not saying just yes to everything, but um as I age, and especially as a woman too, like I would love to eventually have a family someday, so I know that plays a part into it. So I feel myself slowing down a bit and not taking life so quickly and um so fast, but I definitely will always have that wanderous free spirit
Hmm.
that if an opportunity presents itself, that I'll say yes to it if I feel like it's right for me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And lastly, if somebody picks up the book, what do you think you'd want them to say about it if they give it a read?
She was fucking cool and badass. And she lived life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Because I've got some interesting stories that I have, and places that I've put myself in, and adventures that I've gone on. It would be a really entertaining book, honestly, I think. So I would just want them to think that, like, damn, she really lived her life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would definitely agree. You have some amazing stories, have some cool adventures. I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on and sharing some of them with me today and sharing some
Of
of them
course.
with the audience. It was a real pleasure, so I can't thank you
Of
enough.
course. Thank you. I had a blast, and I've always wanted to like tell my story authentically, and I mean, granted that was just a little snippet of it, but just thinking back and like reliving my story through this conversation was amazing. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And sorry for being late. I'm times.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I know how busy things can get. There's all sorts of moving parts. So again,
Mm.
like I said, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, Brendan. And it was nice to meet you.
That's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you once again to Addison. Amazing story. Had so much fun recording this one and sharing it with all of you. I hope you guys gained a lot of value from it and got to hear an interesting perspective and a cool story. If you made it this far and you still haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, then I'm going to take this as a personal attack on me, and I'm going to take it as disrespect from you that are watching or listening right now. Please do me that favor and head over to YouTube and subscribe. Like I said, it helps the channel grow tremendously, and it allows us to do some of the exciting things that we've got planned for the rest of the year and in 2024. So if you do that small favor for me, thank you so much. Thank you, Addison, once again, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.